Those who are enemies declare to be friends are not necessarily our enemies, and we need to do their job better than them, so it's our voice that guides the conversation. In the recent conversation with Dave Rubin and Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro, Eric Weinstein offers an idea about how he wants to steer the intellectual dark web, this term that he coined, this movement that I hope he actually gets a fair amount of guidance in directing it, because I like what he has to say. At the end of the conversation, he implores the members of the intellectual dark web in two ideas, which I'm going to summarize as follows. Those who are enemies declare to be friends are not necessarily our enemies, and we need to do their job better than them, so it's our voice that guides the conversation. So I'm going to go through what he said and tease out the elements so that we can create a template moving forward, so that we can actually create the results we want through this intellectual dark web movement, to focus on the things that really need to be focused on so we can make the changes to truly make a better society, to make better people, to make a better world. Not just win some arguments, but actually make the difference we want to make. So here's what Eric had to say, and then we'll get into how Jordan Peterson responds.
I think that one of the things that I'm most worried about is that fighting the supposedly empathic army of people trying to destroy conversation itself has had a very negative impact on my empathy for exactly the people that they want me to have empathy for. And I think that it's very important for all of us to say, okay, what's the steel manning of that position, and to make an extra effort when people are making absolutely non-empathic arguments trying to destroy you and fry you, to think about the empathy that you want to have for whatever went wrong in their lives.
So first, those who are enemies declare to be friends are not necessarily our enemies. For example, when a social justice warrior bad stereotype says something that just infuriates me, makes my blood boil and my heart just sink at the unfortunate personal attacks involved that distract from the issues. When they say something, for example, about the disproportionate number of blacks in prison or the sexual harassment that women have to go through sometimes, if I'm not careful, the distaste that I feel for the tactics that the person is using, which might involve tone or misrepresentation or demonization, whatever it is, the distaste I feel towards that tactic can actually be put onto the group that the people are defending. And then when I'm thinking about the blacks in prison or the American citizens in prison, that I associate them with the negative experience that I have for the actual person making the argument. It requires additional effort to keep those clean. And Eric Weinstein is saying to make sure that we show compassion to the people who deserve compassion, that we champion the people who need a champion, as Jordan Peterson would say, that we make sure that we're doing that we don't confuse the distaste and disdain we feel towards the people who are making the argument with the actual people that they're attempting to help, that we also want to help, that we have to make sure that we keep those two clean. And while this first point is an important reminder, the second point actually provides a way forward, where Eric suggests that we steelman our opponent's arguments, such that we can actually make their case better than them and make sure that the people who they're attempting to help actually have the real arguments put forward so that they can get the help that they need, so that they can get the support that they need, so that we can draw awareness to them such that we can make the true argument in support of the people who need help and who need championing. And we become the voices of reason in the conversation so that we can take over for them, so that the issues get addressed, but they get addressed rationally, generously, in a way that can further the conversation, or at least further the conversation in a way that doesn't leave such a bad taste in so many people's mouth. And I pull out this idea because it's central to this bringing light to the intellectual dark web project that I'm engaged in, and the deconstruction of the Peterson-archy project, right? It's like, how do we talk about these issues and get to the underlying real concerns and finding the alternate perspectives that give us a better view of what's happening so that we can create real solutions, so that we can create true solidarity across political populations rather than polarization where one side has to win against the other and it ends up leading people into more and more extremes. How do we have the conversation that actually honors both sides of the issue, the real conversation, the real issues, without getting lost in the polarization and the self-righteousness? That's what I'm all about. And so when I hear Eric say this, it's like, yes, let's do this. Let's make this a central goal that we're working towards in this project of the intellectual dark web. And so I was enheartened and happy with Jordan Peterson's response to this, as he actually says, maybe there's something to this. Here's what Jordan says.
Wrong in their lives.
It might be fun at some point to conjure up a panel where some of the people that are in this group take the leftist position and defend it in every possible way, right from the postmodern conclusions, which, I think are worthy of substantial skepticism, to the notion of the reality of the dispossessed and the presence of systemic oppression and all of that, and to make the cases as brutally as we possibly can. I think that would be useful.
Like I will not steelman those tactics, but I will.
No, not the tactics, but the content, because then we could. Because it doesn't seem like we've been able to have the debate with anybody who can carry the debate. So it might be really useful.
Well, I think Brett and I have been trying, but it's hard because we're spending most of our energy
fending off the attacks.
I think we've all been trying.
The tactics.
The tactics, that's exactly the point. It's not the conclusions.
So Jordan here suggests that we actually put together a panel of intellectual dark web people, perhaps dark weavers, so that they can represent the positions on the left or from the social justice warrior perspective, so that we can actually have the debate about the real issues rather than getting lost in the name calling and misrepresentation that the members of the intellectual dark web are so critical of because of their tactics. How do we actually get down to the arguments and represent their arguments using steel manning to actually put out their arguments better than they can themselves, so that we can actually engage in the real dialogue rather than name calling and personal attacks? And I think this is a useful addition and complement to the work that the intellectual dark web is putting out. Because if there's anything that the intellectual dark web represents, from my perspective, it's a group of people who have very different opinions on a lot of fundamental issues. However, they all agree in the method of conversation, the use of rational dialogue and charitable interpretation of one another, so that they can truly understand one another and learn from one another's perspective to get down to the heart of the matter. How do we actually deal with the real issues without devolving into name calling? This is, I would say, at the heart of the intellectual dark web. And so Eric offers this template. Jordan kind of cottons onto it. What if we take it upon ourselves to accurately represent the heart of the issue of the people that we're arguing against, so that we can have the real conversation, going beyond the argument to the actual ideas, and understanding them in a way that transforms our experience of the world such that we become more powerful, more loving, better able to partner to create the world that we want to wake up to. That's certainly what this Art of Thriving podcast show is all about, especially the bringing light to the intellectual dark web and the deconstruction of the Peterson-archy aspects of this show that I've been playing with. So I'm looking forward to a lot more of this, and I'm excited that Eric put forth the idea with such clarity, and Jordan Peterson responded so positively to it. I think that offers something special. So I look forward to more. Again, Mark Michael Lewis from the Human Thriving Institute, reminding you to make your deepest happiness your highest priority.